This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Coaches, bro.
Yeah.
What are the delays? What's the names? Give me
Well,
some rumors.
Well, I'll get. Let me first start off with the delays. I tried to explain this in my story yesterday for The Athletic, where I'm trying to paint a picture of first of all, Mario is taking a super deep dive into every one of these candidates. Okay, every guy between the recruiting. Okay, and I don't know if people have been watching Mario on Twitter, but he's in Washington on Wednesday.
Everywhere.
He was in. I mean, the guy is all over the planet. Doing in-house visits, so it's kind of hard to do a coach search while you're in the middle of recruiting, right? It's kind of hard to do that all at the same time. I don't know how the hell he does it.
Well, I'm flying to Marietta. Meet me in Marietta tomorrow
Right.
at noon. We'll talk for a couple of hours. That's it.
Right. Well, listen, the rumors, if you listen to the internet boards and all these internet reporters, all these Twitter Canes beat writers, right, that are just on Twitter, they're supposed to be a coaching hire at some point today, right? Everybody's, it's going to be Friday, it's going to be this coach, it's going to be that coach, all because of Shamar Stewart, right? Like they're going to hire a coordinator just to please a kid. No, I don't necessarily believe that. I think Mario, from my conversations with people in the program and close to the program, he's been taking his time because the NFL coaching tree is going to get shaken up, right? There were 2 hires yesterday. I think there's still 7 openings, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I think there's guys that are in those ranks that would prefer to coach in the NFL, okay, than to coach in college. But if the opportunity didn't present itself in the NFL, they'd be willing to come to college and be the coordinators on offense and defense. And
the reverse is also guys that get hired will free up guys that will get fired, and some
Right.
of those guys may be options for him also. So he may have a guy targeted that he knows is only being held as an insurance policy.
Correct.
Until they get their head coach, who then will decide who to keep and who to replace, and then he expects to get that guy. So I kind of I'm picking up on what you're doing there. Okay, I get it.
It's a domino effect. And look, there's guys that he's interviewed that he's liked through the process. I'm sure they've discussed money, they've discussed scenarios, they've discussed assistant coaches. But I don't think he's in any rush. And I tried to break this down in my story. Miami fans, the players, the recruits need to know who the coordinators are. And I'm like, well, I just spent the weekend at Miami talking to all these 2023 and 24 kids. They didn't give a damn. They were there just, hey, I'm at Miami. I'm taking pictures. I'm doing videos. I'm enjoying Coach Cristobal. He seems like a cool. For those kids, it doesn't matter. They're a year away from deciding. The 11 guys that they're talking to now, sure, they would love to know who the coordinators are. But you're adding, like I said, maybe a handful of guys. So why are you going to rush through the process for 5 recruits? Oh, why are you going to? What's the point of that? Mario's thinking is always long term. It's always big picture. It's always about the players and getting the best players and getting the best coaches. And this process that he's taken, he's in no rush, man. He's in no rush. I think while there's always a possibility you could hear an announcement, where he just finally breaks down and says, hey, this is who I'm hiring. I think the NFL deal is really what's affected this whole process. And I want people to understand that. Why hasn't he gone faster? Because he's waiting for people to A, get eliminated, or B, even end their college contracts, right? A lot of guys are signed through signing day, right? Coaches aren't allowed to leave programs contractually.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so maybe after Wednesday is when we get the news. Maybe he already knows and he gets to tell Shamar Stewart, hey, this guy's going to be my defensive coordinator. I'm only telling you. And but we're going to announce it a week after signing day. We're going to announce it whenever we can. So I think Miami fans just need to be patient. I get it. There's a lot of angst and urgency and feeling of, man, this guy, what is he doing? There's a method to his madness. And as I wrote in my article, there are a lot of other great things happening for Miami's program right now in terms of structurally becoming the type of Power 5 program that you need. And that's developmental staff. I spoke to Rudy Fernandez a couple of weeks ago. He was on my podcast as well. Rudy, of course, was the one, behind hiring Mario and Dan Radakovich, the new athletic director. Julio Frank's right-hand man. He talked about it with me that, they had one person assigned as developmental staff. Clemson had 12. They know all about Clemson because Radakovich ran that program. And when he was doing his homework, found out Clemson has 12 people. So 12 developmental staff, people that work in terms of massages, getting kids tutored, whatever it is, all the on-campus stuff that you need, the one-on-one attention that these kids need to keep them in line, to keep them focused, to do all the things they're supposed to do. Miami had one guy in that position last year under Manny Diaz. Mario made sure when he signed on the dotted line that he got just as much as Clemson, if not more. So all of those hirings, all those other jobs are being put in place. I also mentioned the Andrew Rogers kid, the kid that was at Michigan State, helping them running their transfer portal. We saw what Michigan State did in 1 year running the transfer portal, right? Going from 4 wins or whatever it was, 2 wins to winning 11 games in the Peach Bowl. So
Can I follow up on something there?
yeah, go ahead.
Can you do a story? Maybe you did and I missed it. Can you
Mm-hmm.
do a story on that guy and how is there a skill or something to follow this transfer portal? Because it's thousands of kids that are in this thing.
Right.
So how do you decipher all of this? How do you find everything? How do you, how do you what is it? Categorize it or whatever you do for the head coach? Because I'm really interested to see how that whole process. Because obviously, if you hired somebody to do that, then there has to be some kind of a skill set. It's not just some secretary going, all right, let me write his name down. It's Andy Ellisberg. Yes.
Right.
Offensive lineman, 6'7", leaving the Heat, going to, well, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there has to be something there, right? Because if they're taking him away from Michigan State, you just said, look what he did at Michigan State. So there's something to this thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, there's a relationship. Rogers is his father coached Alonzo Highsmith at Columbus. He was one of the assistant coaches at Columbus back in the day. Grew up in Stuart, Florida. So this is a homecoming for him, so to speak. And obviously, there's the Columbus connection, right, to Cristobal and everybody else, Mirabal on the staff. So he's a young
Columbus
kid.
Mafia.
The Columbus Mafia. Yeah, he's 26 years old. Now, look, I did a story on the guy who used to be, in charge of watching the transfer portal for Miami. This is back even, when Manny Diaz first took over. I can tell you that process, when the transfer portal was first sort of starting out, this guy was overloaded. He wasn't just doing the transfer portal. He was also working on, recruiting, scouting. So now there's somebody specifically tied to just monitoring the transfer portal all day. That's what this guy does. And this is about college staffs adjusting to what's changing, right, in the world, right? And so a lot of times, just so you know, when kids put their name in the transfer portal, what you get, what these guys look at, and I've seen it. I've actually seen the actual transfer portal. We have some writers at The Athletic who have links to get into this thing, right? Really good team at The Athletic. Oh,
nice.
So these guys, what you see is a name, an
email. They're half writers, half hackers.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
All right. Athletic hiring hackers. Attention, all the New York Times and The Athletic hiring hackers. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. That made me laugh. So anyway, when these kids put their name in the transfer portal, it's not like all of a sudden there's a whole profile on them. It's a name, it's an email, and a school and the sport that they play. Nothing on the position, nothing on height and weight, no scouting reports, none of that. So now think about it. It's just like an NFL department, right? Player personnel department. What happens?
All that.
You got to decipher all of that information and break it down. This kid does that, and he communicates with the coaches on a daily, hourly basis.
Because it's a timely thing. Because
it's all about who's first.
Somebody else, and it might be a specific talent that you all need, and boom, first come, first serve. Kind of like,
Right. Yeah, you got to jump on it quickly, and you got to have a good system. And some guys are more efficient at it than others. And again, as I mentioned before, the guy who did it when the transfer portal first started at Miami, he was doing that and high school recruiting stuff. Imagine all those tasks. How's that person going to do as good a job if he's just not focused on that? So there's essentially college scouting departments where these guys create folders now, just like the guys did in the NFL back in the day. And they have folders for thousands of players. And they keep track of every information, every recruit who's been on your campus, every little detail. So that if you want to reach out to that kid or that parent or whoever's in the transfer portal, you don't just have to go through the email address. You have a whole database.
Did you write that story already?
I wrote this one a couple years ago for The Athletic. It's one of the first stories I wrote of how the transfer portal worked.
Okay. But things have to have changed and
they're just
evolved since then.
They're much more evolved, much more efficient And
Oh, you
this
got to do it
guy,
again, bro. You got to
yeah,
do that story again.
yeah. Well, hopefully I can sit down and talk with Andrew at some point. Hopefully
Not only
Mario.
that, you should try to get somebody in another school to
Yeah,
kinda see how it is on the competition
that
side, all that kind of stuff.
I think that's a perfect story idea. I'm going to pitch it to some of the other guys at the Athletic to see if maybe we talk to different people. And listen, David Upman did a story this week actually talking to people that involved in the transfer portal for the Athletic. For us, you can go to the Athletic and read that story. In fact, I hadn't
I'll check it
retweeted
out
it yet. Yeah, David, just the secrets of the transfer portal. You know, it's kind of like very similar to what you were talking about. But it's as far as Miami and this kid and his tactics, I would love to know some of what he does to be so efficient at it and to be so good at it to land quality players. So again, college football's changing, man. Like everybody's talking about getting rid of divisions. I mean, this we could go on and on for hours talking about stuff, man. This is interesting stuff. And we got a great coach here now in South Florida, great recruiter. I mean, this guy is just relentless as far as recruiting. I mean, I don't know how many head coaches spend as many hours as Mario does recruiting, but he's just the intensity of it, calling parents and cousins and whoever he needs to talk to. He's constantly on the phone, and I think eventually this thing's going to turn around, man. It's going to take a little while. He's got to get the roster right. He's got to get that offensive line, that defensive line right.